Now, greens are an absolutely fascinating subject, and they're not that difficult. I'm going to show you how I mix my greens, a huge variety of different greens, and they're all the greens that we can see in nature. And I'm going to show you how to push them one way or push them another, so you too can create whatever colour you're after in the green range. So let's start by looking at the greens that are out there in nature. This is the view from just above my studio. You can see the huge variety of different greens that are in this one photograph. So let's pick out just 3 of those greens to show how different they can be. Can you see the yellow and the green of this ivy leaf? Now compare it with this walnut leaf green. This is much more of a blue green. The eucalypt or gum tree leaf is more of a sage green. You can see there's even more blue in the green mix that we would need to paint this leaf. If we put the colour samples together, you can see just how different our leaf greens can be. As we move further back, you can see how the greens are changing and becoming more blue. When we go right the way back, we can see that the mount, this is called Mount Maunganui, and it's just nestled in our harbour. It's quite blue on the top, but if you were actually there, you would see that the green and the foliage that is on all of the leaves and the grasses that are there are actually not too dissimilar from some of these colours that we see in here. As things recede, atmosphere has a far greater impact and things become more blue. There's less red, less yellow, and things become more blue, and that's certainly very evident in this. So how do we mix those greens? What I want to start showing you is how I mix my basic sap green. You'll see how I lay out my colours. I always lay them out in the same way, and then you become so familiar with them that you know instinctively just where to go for every colour. Now I've mixed a relatively fine wash of just straight sap green. To that I want to add some translucent orange. And you can see immediately how we're getting quite an olive green. I would never use the Sheminka sap green straight out of the tube because I feel that it's a wonderful mixing green, but it's not a green that I ever actually see in nature. Now you can see that if I want to make a lovely sap green, I'm not going to be able to do it with that amount of translucent orange, so I need to compensate and pick up some more of the sap green and add that to our mix. So can you see that this is a really lovely and quite luscious sap green, much more natural than the sap green here that it just comes out of the tube. So what we're going to mix now, I want to create a blue green. I want to create a green that maybe is a little bit more dull than the more rich sap green that we have mixed here. So I'll just put a little bit here so you can see. In this case, I've used ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue often dulls things down when used in a mix. I very rarely would use ultramarine blue unless I wanted a more dulled colour. The better blue to use if you want to create a richer, more vibrant and powerful colour would be a tiny amount of phthalo blue. Now, I won't take this right the way to the edge because what I want you to see is how you can give the impression of a highlight on a leaf by using this dulled mix of ultramarine and a smaller amount of sap green. Now you'll see that I have left an area that's a little bit lighter. I want to mimic the look of a highlight on a leaf. This is when I use this more dulled green. Quite often when light is reflecting off a leaf, it has that opaque look. And because there's so much light going onto that local colour of green, it dulls it right down. And what often appears actually quite a bright white really isn't. It's actually quite a dulled, soft, delicate green. And I create that using ultramarine blue and our sap green mix. Now I want to create a spring green. The green that was showing in this photograph, the lovely plum tree. Can you imagine that more into spring? The new green is a fresh, crisp green. It's so much cooler than the older greens. So we do that by using a cooler yellow. And the coolest yellow that I use is Cerulean, and add it to our sap green mix. So you can see here, we have a lovely, cool green that's quite different from our sap green. And I'm just going to drop that into my second clear water wash, and you can immediately see how lovely and clean and fresh and crisp that green is. It perfectly describes that lovely spring green. So now let's take a look at how to create an olive green. You can see that we have a very olive green tree here. It's all a matter of observing. But the more you learn to mix your colours, the more you'll understand about all the colours that you're using. So we have our sap green, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of our translucent orange. And you can see immediately we're getting quite an olive green there. Because there's some red in that translucent orange, it's also cancelling out the brightness of our green. But I want to show you that if you find that your olive green is too olive and it's dulling your green right down and you want to enrich it, there's a simple thing that you can do. Pick up some phthalo blue. You remember previously in our mix when we were trying to create a dull blue green, we used ultramarine blue. But what we want to do is enrich our green. So now we pick up the phthalo blue, and you look at the difference. Phthalo blue into that olive colour gives a lovely richness. Let's just compare that. Can you see that we've got a very olive colour here? This one is probably going more into the blues, and maybe it's too much blue. Let's pick up a little bit more of our translucent orange and add a little bit more of that. And you can see immediately it's going more olive. Can you see that? Once again, you might find it's too olive. Just a little bit, tiny bit of phthalo blue. Let's try that. So you can see how we can create the most amazing variety of colours. We push it this way, push it that way, and it's just a matter of trying. It's trial and error and becoming familiar with the sort of colours that you can mix and how you can dull them down, how you can really enrich them, how you put yellow under washes, under areas, greens that you really want to glow, how you use just the white paper for the areas that you want to be maybe more blue or more purple. So you can see as these are drying, we have created several different greens. We've got the sap green that's on white paper. Compare that to the sap green that's got the yellow underwash, and you can see how the yellow underwash really gives that substance and allows that green to glow so beautifully. Then we have a blue green. That's wonderful for some greens that are naturally very blue, but also it's wonderful for highlights. And you see how the lighter area gives the impression that the light's coming from here. Now compare the sap green with the beautiful spring green that we created by using more Cerulean yellow in our sap green mix. And you can see here we have a more olive green. We've created the olive green by adding a little bit more of our translucent orange to our sap green mix. I decided over here that it was a little bit too olive. Maybe I'd like to make it a little bit richer by adding a touch of phthalo blue. Then down here I showed you what happens then if we add a little bit more of our translucent orange to bring it back a little bit more into the olive range. So I think that these are great exercises, and it will be wonderful for you to just have a little play with it, and you can see how you can manipulate your colours and your mixes yourself. But please do write above each of them what the mixes are so that when you refer back to them, they are a wonderful reference rather than having to guess. Have fun with that.